Hey folks, welcome to the Restoration Couple. Today is a big day. We're going to get kitchen worktops almost ready to fit. No more OSB or cardboard or whatever we've been making our sandwiches on for a few weeks now. So stick around and I'll show you how we got on. So I was trying to work out which side we would want as our visible top surface. This one's got a couple of dark spots, not really knots, but just some marks. But it looks like that they've actually decided that for us, because this has only been finished to, I don't know, like a 80 or 120, whereas the top, or the bottom in this case, feels a lot smoother. So that's exactly how we want it, because our very first job today is going to be to seal the underside, which is kind of one of the most important things with solid wood, is do the same treatment all the way around. That means it will stay nice and stable. So we'll get the oil on, it dries nice and quick, get 2 coats on I think, and then we can get it in place and work out where we're going to put our sink. We're all set to cut this worktop. This is the first section, the breakfast bar, probably the easiest bit to install. The underside's already been sealed with 1 coat. We'll probably put a 2nd coat on later. But because it's not vital, that underside at the moment, we can just turn it over and we'll work on it as it is. So we've finally laid out the sink. Bit of shifting and a few FaceTimes with Joe. Decided where it's going to go. I've also marked it up ready for cutting. The template that came with it is what we're going to be running the saw along. I use the track saw and then nip out the last bits with the jigsaw. Right, I've now done all the cuts, the square cuts at least, for the sink, and I'll finish off the corners with the jigsaw. Next job is to cut the excess off the end of the breakfast bar. We've measured this back, but of course we haven't got our end panel on yet, so we've allowed for the end panel and the same overhang as the rest of the kitchen units. So that's our line. So this is the big cut. Hopefully we've measured enough times that we're not going to get this wrong. Right, all cut. I have left the corners square rather than rounded them, which was what was on the template, but I'm pretty sure that lip allows for that and it's going to cover it.
34, yeah.
The heaviest caravan sink in the world. You got it?
Yep.
That's the other thing with the ceramic sink, is making sure it's, because sometimes they're imperfect, but that looks fairly square. We realised that we never really squared these cabinets here to the other ones, so we just shifted them across as one, and the dishwasher will fit in later, and then that just means that we can now make sure that this join is going to be nice and tight without having to scribe everything to the wall, even though the upstand will cover a lot of that. It's good, isn't it?
It is.
And how we at the front.
It's got to come this way a bit, which is good because we'll close that gap down the far end a bit.
Right, back when I was cutting, I can't remember what I was cutting, the panelling I think, I mentioned about getting a 3-metre track for the saw. I haven't actually ended up using it. So we're going to use it now because there's one long rip along the back of the worktop to do. So this is probably the most over-engineered packaging I've ever seen, but I guess you want to protect something that's quite precision. How do you get into that? So it does fit. So the Evolution, the Makita and the Festool obviously fit the Festool track saw. The only thing you have to do on the first cut is this black rubber strip here, which stops, as you cut, stops the tear out, the splinters happening. We're going to cut through that with the blade first, and it will take off maybe 1 millimetre or 2, and then that ends up exactly on the edge of your blade, so you get a clean cut. You always get more mess if you're going all the way through. Normally you cut out on the table, so not this, but I've got another kind of sacrificial board. You get absolutely no dust then, because, or no shavings, because everything gets sucked up. If you're going through and plunging all the way through, then of course you get a bit of fallout. But if you were to compare that to using a circular saw, even with a dust extractor on it, it would be absolutely everywhere. So still the tidiest way to go. The second worktop is now cut for the hob, so that's sorted. Now I'm just adding on a angled section because we're going to do a glue up rather than turning the corner or using a 900 worktop. join, it's closed up. There's a fraction of a millimetre, well, tiny amount there, which probably will clamp shut. Then down here, again, I think it's going to pull in. We'll probably smooth this a little bit and then the router will go over. I ended up recutting this end, even though there's a bit of a burn mark there, because the track had shifted a little bit, so all of that will have to stand smooth. That's the only bit of end grain shut. The other option would have been to bisect the 135-degree angle as the units turn. I would have to put a join in here and a join in here, but hardly any of that's visible, so hence why I've decided to keep it simple. Just add this section on and accept that we'll see the end grain here as it turns the corner. In reality, that's no different from the end of the breakfast bar where you'd see the end grain anyway at the blocks, so I'm not too worried. It wasn't my original plan, but I think it's worth doing. So the next job is to flip this one over, and then I'm going to biscuit join this section here on, leave it to clamp up, maybe until tomorrow, by which time I might have someone for 10 minutes tomorrow to just lift everything in place, because of course I can't bolt these two together, even though we've done all of our joins here. I can't bolt them and then flip them over because that would just be silly. So I'm going to have to bolt them, slide them this way, probably have to hover them over this void here, get underneath, bolt them up, and then slide it back in as an L. So all I can think of, sure kitchen fitters out there will tell me otherwise, but that seems to make sense, especially with this size breakfast bar. There's no way it's just a small L that we can bolt and then just flip over. So there's our mark, that's the intersection of these two pieces. Need to be there. So the next job is biscuits, and until I've got some sort of fancy domino joiner, I'm gonna have to use biscuits, and really all they're doing is holding it in place until such time as the glue sets and everything goes solid. We could use the same bolts we've used at that end, but I don't have any. I was leaving the tool in to stop the dust flying out. I was turning it off and leaving it in until it had finished. So that's probably, yeah, that's what it is. Have I messed it up? I'd say we go for it. It feels quite strong now actually, and I can spend time making sure that it's flat. Good. Okay, I've got the clamps on, dry, and it's obviously what happens is it pulls it up like this. So we either need to put bracing across and try and clamp that down, but it needs quite a lot of strength. Or the other option is to put a couple of pocket hole screws underneath just to make sure, because what's happening is it's opening up underneath because we're pulling in the top more than the bottom. And I can't really put the clamps underneath, not easily anyway. So I might just try screwing the bottom to pull it across. It's not a huge dip, but I don't really want it. Although it is closing up the top nicely. And I'm just struggling for 1 meter clamps. I've got 1 or 2 other big old ones, but they're probably rusty. I don't really want to bring them in here. So maybe a combination of both. Well, that's the answer. It's bang on. It's just I don't have endless pairs of clamps like that. Well, it's not going too badly for my first attempt at getting a kitchen worktop fully installed. I've done a few short runs before. We've done breakfast bars, a little kitchen in our camper van conversion, but never a full kitchen. So this is treading on new territory. I don't have all the jigs, don't have all the knowledge, but I think, you know, measure enough times, template it, get the actual sink there, the hob there, measure it in person, don't rely on measurements on a website. And yes, the routing, I just used a drill and a router to do those bolt joints, but I think that's fine. It seems to have bolted up well, and in the next video I'll be showing it all going together. Hopefully the hob's going to fit, hopefully the sink's going to fit, and we'll get all of that final coat of the top oil on. Now remember what I said earlier on in the video, if you're going to do solid wood worktops, solid wood tabletops, you've got to seal the underside. It's got to be the biggest takeaway from this whole thing, especially above appliances, in the moisture in the kitchen. If you only treat the top, you're just asking for problems. So whether it's just a coat or a couple of coats, you don't have to do loads of prep and sanding. Get it done the day before and then flip it and install it, and then you can get on with fitting everything, getting the upstands on, and almost being ready to cook your first meal. So I'm hoping in the next video we'll be able to share that all with you. Lots going on here, and yes, we've got lambs on the way. If you haven't been following, we're trying to get this building finished, so at least we've got somewhere to retreat to in amongst lambing here on the farm. So I hope you guys can join us in the next video, but for now, thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.